Hello, hello, and welcome to In Service to Transformation with me, your host, Claire Darnell. Just going to do a little special this week and talk a little more with you about a part of my own journey that has been deeply transformative, and that is my journey around my sexuality. And whenever I share about this, I find that others connect with me and they reach out and say, I'm journeying through something similar. Um, and I really appreciate you sharing your story. So it felt like a really valuable place to go to in terms of, yeah, just maybe providing a little bit of insight around the pieces of my journey that were challenging and that I had to navigate. And then ultimately, that ended up becoming probably some of the most transformative and medicinal because I don't know about you, but for me, there's always this element of when something feels insurmountable or quite big and quite challenging, I often find that there's the most to gain on the other side of that initiation or that journey through to the other side. So yeah, that's what I'm going to share about. So I guess I guess I would identify myself as queer. That's a word that I've got way more comfortable with in the last few years. Prior to that, I guess I had quite a narrow-minded perspective of um, gayness, queerness, because my lived experience was that I'd kind of existed in the world as a straight person. And whilst I definitely have experienced people close to me being homosexual or lesbian, it wasn't my own direct lived experience. And so, um, yeah, I I think I was very much conditioned in terms of my perspective around gay lifestyles, and it was quite limited for me to in terms of yeah how many people I had around me who were openly out and so on and so forth. My uncle was gay, um, fairly openly. He died in 1991 of HIV. Um, I was still quite young at the time. I think I would have been 16 or 17 at the time, and I was really grateful that I'd got to spend time with him in the last year or so of his life and spend time with him and nurse him and things like that. And I wish that he could have stuck around a little bit longer because yeah, I would have loved to have had him in my corner as an ally during my own coming out journey and to sort of find identification with him. But he was a really inspiring person. He was really there's a almost become mythological story within my family about him as a young man growing up in Dagenham and in the glam rock era, stepping out of the house, dressed head to toe in crimson velvet, flares, and a cape, and sashaying his way down Becontree Avenue, as it was known, in Dagenham, and giving no fucks. So yeah, I would have liked some of his sass for sure. And my own journey really with exploring my queerness um, prior to really accepting my sexuality a few years ago was that I had definitely had some interactions with friends as a youngster. I had definitely explored my fluidity of my sexual preferences, I would say, as a teenager or preteen, sexual experimentation with female friends. But for me, there was a point at which I experienced a huge trauma when I was sexually assaulted. And I feel that really changed the trajectory of my sexual exploratory experiences. So, and what I mean by that is because I had experienced this rape with a boy, a male, something was triggered in me that meant that I felt I had to repair that rupture. And so I feel that it kind of sent me on this trajectory of having to prove that I was not broken. And so I just kept repeating this pattern of being in these hetero relationships. And yeah, I kind of shut the door on any potential exploration elsewhere. And I started going into lots of monogamous relationships as well as a result of that. Once I'd moved through the sort of destructive, promiscuous stage that resulted on the back of that rape, what I ended up doing was moving into sort of serial monogamous relationships from the age of 16. So I drink. So yeah, here I was trundling through my life, inverted commas, straight, but actually really finding people of the same sex very attractive. I had a few kisses and encounters with women. I came very close to following one through. One of those encounters was almost followed up, but unfortunately I had an encounter with a woman. We met in a club. My sister was there and something awful happened in terms of my sister being given a drug or a hypno or something in that club, and a roofie type thing. And we ended up having to, like caretake her and get her home. And it kind of interrupted the flow of that exploration. And then that woman, she went back to the States. So I really had only experienced kissing. And so when my last relationship ended, I kind of knew that I was going to experiment potentially with people of the same sex. And I remember my ex saying to me, "Are you going to date women now?" Almost in a like, "I think you should look at that as an option." And yeah, so I guess I started to entertain the idea, and I developed a friendship with somebody who was openly gay. We became friends. We had a long-term friendship with no sort of desire for anything beyond that. And then she needed a place to stay, and I rented my spare room to her. And yeah, after some time, after she'd been living with me, after some time, I just kind of, I guess I started to develop feelings for her and she for me. We got along really well. She was available, she was single, we fell in love. And it kind of took me by surprise, right? So even though I was exploring the potentiality of same-sex relationship, I moved into a whole process around this rediscovering this part of myself. And it was really interesting, actually, how I saw that change showing up for me in my life. So I noticed that what I did was I had a lot of judgment about myself. I had a lot of judgment about myself, and my queerness or my gayness, or and what I did with that was I projected it onto the people around me. So I projected it onto friends, associates, people in the fellowship that I was a part of, colleagues. I would just project that they wouldn't accept me in my, as a gay person. And so my fear of like, what will people think, was really prevalent. And actually, it really took a friend saying to me, this is your internalized homophobia speaking out loud. You're projecting it onto other people, but ultimately, this is what you feel about yourself. And I really had to, sit with that, because in my mind, I didn't feel homophobic. I felt so far away from that as a reality. But the truth was, it was internalized homophobia, because none of us are immune from absorbing the conditioning and the oppression of a homophobic society. So on some level, we will absorb some of the messaging and some of the stories and some of the judgments of others via the media, via so many sources. We just live with this from day dot, right? In this kind of undercurrent of being gay is bad, being gay is dangerous. I mean, I grew up in the AIDS era. I had lost my uncle to HIV. There were definitely elements of lack of acceptability of that in myself. And also, as I said, I'd been in straight relationships. So I'd lived my life as a straight woman. So there was a huge part of my identity that I had to, on one hand, let go, and on another hand, welcome in. And that's challenging. That's like when you've lived in the world for 40 odd years with a certain identity attachment, to turn that upside down and be like, well, who the fuck am I now? That was really challenging. Yeah. And the things that helped me through that period were coming into a place of privacy, coming into a place of allowing myself to take my time in coming to terms with who I was. Being discerning about who I chose to share things with. And there was definitely an element, I remember, of being more comfortable to share it with people who I knew less intimately. Like a couple of select work colleagues became confidants, because the fear of rejection from those really close to me was really strong. And actually, if I'm honest, it needn't be, because nobody rejected me. All of my friends and family were really just very loving to me. There were some concerns, but for various reasons, but none of them were because, I was choosing to be gay. What was interesting also was that I had raised my daughter, I realized, through a completely heterosexual lens. a really heterosexual and a really binary lens, I realize now. You know, and I kind of shudder when I think about how it lacked diversity in terms of the way that I would speak to her, making her aware of same-sex relationships, and that this was a probability, and actually that it was something that I was very much okay with and open to. And so my daughter had never really seen me as anything but straight. And so I think that there was definitely a challenge there for her in transitioning through my changing status. There was one point when she'd said, "Mum, I can handle you being a witch, but not a lesbian." And, you know, I joke about that these days, but I think it spoke volumes because, you know, most kids wouldn't want their mum to be a witch either, right? But yeah, it is what it is. And we've been on a journey, you know, we've been on a journey with that. Even, I think, coming out of a long-term relationship with her father and having to transition into, yeah, I transitioned into, not long after that, into a new relationship, I guess. And it's been a wild ride. And so those were some of the challenges. But let's talk about some of the good stuff. So there's definitely, it's been like a homecoming. So you don't know what you don't know, right? But for me, there was this sense of, and when I share this again, they'll really identify with this as well. People who've transitioned or have come out. And I mean, the whole concept of coming out, right? That's so strange. Like, we don't have to announce our heterosexuality, do we? But yet we have this expectation on people that they have to declare which team they're on, you know, and who they are choosing to be sexually attracted to, which in itself is bizarre. But it is a thing. And yeah, I think in that, you know, in that transition of that kind of coming out, I would actually say that it was more like an experience of coming into resonance, coming into my body. I remember distinctly feeling so safe in my body and like, this makes sense. This feels good. This doesn't feel unfamiliar to me. You know, I liked the feeling of being intimate with somebody of the same sex. It's, you know, the sex was good. Like, it didn't feel like I was acting as if. It felt innate to me. And I think a lot of that was the comfort of not having to exist within some kind of process of moving beyond some of my sexual trauma, not having to move through that wall of being triggered in order to be, you know, having sex with someone who's male, which is quite interesting. So I think that definitely an element of that was, you know, was playing in, but similarly, it just felt so good. It felt so natural. It felt so home. And yeah, and it was like a wild ride, you know. I remember at the time when I was, you know, first being intimate with my partner, and she said to me, "You're definitely not straight," you know, and I knew exactly what she meant because I enjoyed it too much. It felt good. So yeah, it's been really interesting being a baby gay at this old age, you know, turning 50 this year. and being so new in my experience of what it is to be queer, to be exploring these parts of myself, to being becoming part of the community, the queer community, this new extended family, um, finding my place. Yeah, it's just been really beautiful. It's been such a gift, and I will say that I absolutely adore the queer, the gay community. I absolutely adore the openness, the inclusivity, the way that I have been welcomed with open arms. I think one of the really key pieces, if you are maneuvering for a journey like this, is find your people. Go to spaces, be with gay people, share what's going on for you. You're not alone. Like so many people in the queer and gay community, or just people that are choosing same-sex partners, have transitioned through that, through that learning curve, and will understand what it is to have that inherent, yeah, judgment or shame, or just these pieces of like confusion around identity. They'll understand what it is to transition through that. And so yeah, one suggestion I would say is to be in community with other people who identify as queer, um, and just share where you're at. See if you can find someone safe that you can share with, and don't feel like you have to rush. Don't feel like you have to rush into declaring what you are or who you want to be with. You can take your sweet, sweet time, and I think at the time, I remember someone saying to me that when I was worried about what people would think, it was a case of people that matter won't mind, and people that mind don't matter. And it was just that real clarity of, yeah, this is going to change things, and it's okay because the people that really, really care for me will be there for me no matter what. So yeah, it's been a beautiful journey, and it continues to unfold. I am not alone. I weirdly have encountered recently more friends who have gone through this same journey, some of us parallel and unbeknownst to the others. Um, and then we've kind of gravitated and found each other. So there seems to be this, I don't know if it's something to do with like aging or perimenopause, but there's definitely an element of, for me, it was like just coming into my truth of like, life is short. I need to live my life in the way that feels true for me, not for everyone else. And, you know, you can do that for so long, but there's a cost to that. So what are you going to do to live in truth, live in congruence with who you really, really are? And for me, part of that was exploring and being comfortable with being in this same-sex relationship. So yeah, find community, take your time, don't feel rushed to have to declare who you are, what you are, and really yeah, like lean into, I think at the time I remember I listened to podcasts. I was like, I was searching for people who had similar experiences to mine. So if you're struggling and it's something you're transitioning through and you want to connect, reach out, reach out. I would love to be able to support you. Myself and another woman, I shared this previously, and she explained that she was moving through something similar, and we talked about maybe there's something we can do to set up an event, or so there are things that I'm cooking up, that yeah, that I think could be supportive to you. And if I know that's what you need, then I will conjure them. So yeah, but most of all, I would say have some fucking fun with it, you know, and like really just enjoy living in your authentic self and finding out who you are, because the only thing that's constant in life, right, is change. That's the only thing that can be guaranteed. And you can try this, and you know what? You can change back again. You can decide, you get to sleep with any other consenting adult that you choose, regardless of their gender and their sexual identity. That's yours. You get to choose. Hallelujah to that. So yeah, I think that they're kind of the key pieces, and I feel really content that I've kept this sort of short and sweet and to the point. But yeah, it's my journey, and I hope by sharing it, there's something that somebody can take away and, you know, get some resonance, and it might be supportive to someone else to know you're not alone and it's going to be okay. And actually, it's probably you know, if you can just bear the storm or bear the changes, it'll actually be so much better than okay. It could be beautiful. And yeah, that's certainly been my experience. I have never felt more comfortable in my being, in my body, in my, yeah, in terms of being who I am. And I think coming into that sense of, you know, again, I'll use the word congruence, into that clarity as to who I am sexually, has, it's really been such an awakening for me around all of my sexuality. And, you know, like I've maneuvered more into my sacred sexuality work and really been able to open and allow my sexuality to flow more freely through my being. So it's don't underestimate the power of living out of alignment and how that can really impact us physically, mentally, spiritually. And actually, it could be just this one thing that if you've got the itch, you know, if you allow yourself to scratch it, you might actually find relief. And you might find that everything else just starts to fall into place. So, yeah, be real, be authentic, be true to yourself, and enjoy the ride. I hope you enjoyed listening.